The following is a local resident producer's program. The program content is the sole responsibility of the producer and does not necessarily reflect the views or policies of CATV2, Oshkosh Community Media Services, the City of Oshkosh, or Time Warner Cable.
Hi everyone, welcome to Oshkosh. We've got a full table tonight, so we're just going to jump right into this. Dan and I last year had the pleasure of talking with Judge Scott Woldt about the first graduating class, if you will, from the Winnebago County Drug Court, and Cynthia Running was one of those graduates who we were very proud to have on. She's back with us this year along with Judge Woldt. And a graduate from this year, Michelle Ballard, is here as well.
Welcome, Michelle.
And we're going to be talking about the program, how it's evolved in the last year or so, and you know, how the graduates, the past graduate is doing, and how the new graduate feels about the program, and what their aspirations are for the future. So with that, welcome to all of you.
Hey,
and welcome back in a couple of cases. So let's just kind of set the stage here, if you will, Judge. We've been on, I think, 3 times probably talking about the drug court, but in case someone has missed it or maybe they're new to the community, why don't you just kind of give us a brief overview as to what the drug court is and what its function is.
2.5 years ago, we started the drug court. And the reason we did it is we wanted to do an alternative to prison, sending entirely too many people to prison for drug-related crimes. And guess what? They all get out of prison, and not very many of them get treatment. So we wanted to focus this on treatment. I heard a little bit about drug courts. So Judge Key and I went to Reno, and we went through a week-long class on how to run drug court, came back and started this. And for our case in Winnebago County, we have some criteria to get into drug court. You have to be convicted of a felony. It has to be drug related. That doesn't mean it has to be delivery or using. It could be stealing something from your neighbor to get money for drugs. Okay. Then they have to meet the DSM-4 revised criteria for drug or alcohol dependency. They have to want to be in the program, and it can't be a violent felony. We don't take violent felons in our program. They meet that criteria and they live in Winnebago County, they can be in the program. So far in the first 2.5 years, we've had 60 people that have been brought into the drug court. And with Michelle's group, we'll have 10 graduates, and that graduation is going to be on October 7th, correct?
Correct.
12:30, and we were fortunate enough to have the entire Wisconsin Supreme Court come and participate in that graduation.
Wow, that's wonderful. All right. So, you know, initially when the program started, I think there was some skepticism. You know, we all fear the unknown. The convicted probably didn't know how it was going to work. The judges maybe didn't know how it was going to work. Prosecutors, the public probably didn't know how it was going to work. But do you feel that the skepticism has somewhat gone away now?
It's been a learning process for all of us, judges included. As we go through this process, we were learning how to do it and what to do. I think the skepticism at first was, is this safety concerns? Mm-hmm. And is this really going to work? So far with our 10 graduates, our recidivism rate is 0. With the state average, it's about 58% for the people that have this amount of our felony records and prior records. So you can tell that's a tremendous difference. We haven't had any problems whatsoever, and every time I go somewhere and someone finds out I'm Judge Woldt and they know that I run the drug court, everyone gives me a pat on the back. I think the support we have not only from the community, but yourself, the press, they have all been on board with this, and this is the up-and-coming thing. In the state of Wisconsin, we have 72 counties, we have 10 drug courts that are running. That's not enough. So we're in the process with the judicial conference, which is coming up in 2 months, to try to teach the judges how to do this type of stuff. And I'm going to have Cynthia come along with me and tell her story to try to convince these other judges in the state this is something that you should be doing.
And we want to hear each of their stories too, but I want to just touch on this recidivism rate. You said statewide it's about 58%,
Yes.
and locally it's 0. What are we doing so outstanding here that, I mean, is it just because the program is still so new, or are we doing something really outstanding here?
I think they can touch on this a little bit better than I can, because they've lived through probation and what probation is like. When you're placed on probation on a case, a lot of these people will see the probation agent maybe once a month. Sometimes it's once every 3 months, and they may get tested. They come up positive. The agent will say, "Stop doing that. Go get in AA meetings." And then they come back 2-3 months later and they test positive again, and there's just no follow through. Now, our average for drug court graduates being in the program for a year is typically around 130 UAs, urinalysis tests, during the year they're in the program. We're testing them all the time. They have to call the codaphone now. It was only 5 days a week when Cynthia is in. Now it's 7 days a week. So we test them every day of the week if we think it's necessary. They have to call the phone every day to find out whether they have to come in. We make them go to meetings. They have to follow through, and we ask them questions every week when they come in. Have you been going to your meetings? One thing you asked about learning, what we learned through our process, and we started this, is people at first wanted to get into drug court because it was so easy. After about 6 months, no one wanted to get into drug court because they heard it was too hard. So that's one thing defendants learned. One thing we learned is when these people got into drug court, none of them would have jobs. None of them could get jobs. And they were sitting around all day long and not doing anything. I think one of our first graduates, Thomas, Judge Key actually bought him an alarm clock because he never woke up in the morning. Well, we've developed a rule called the Rule of 40. So every week they have to do 40 hours of something. Job search, community service, meetings, come to drug court, or work. Usually when people have that Rule of 40, it takes them about 2 weeks to find a job, because they realize that's a lot of community service work. If I'm doing 30 hours of community service work a week and not getting paid for this, why can't I get a job? And miraculously, they no longer had any excuses about why they couldn't find jobs. So they all got jobs real fast. And the nice thing about our program is these people they're all getting high school degrees, diplomas, and they all have jobs. They're all working. They're all successful when they get out.
All right, good. Cynthia, you are now out of this program for a year, and obviously doing some very good things, going to be going on the road here with His Honor. Tell us just a little bit about your story and how you came to get in trouble and how you came to get into the drug court.
Well, I was on probation at the time. I was on probation prior to getting arrested again. It was for credit card fraud, and then it was drug related. I was cashing checks where I was with my employer, dealing cocaine to him. I was charged with employee theft, and I was looking at a long time into Cheetah. I think it was 16 years to be exact.
That's a long time.
Yeah, and I had been on probation, like you said. You go in, see her maybe once a month or once every 3 months, and she would just kind of like wave you off or chew on your butt a little bit and say, as long as you kept your job. And they really didn't, it's like they didn't care. In drug court, they did. It was hard, but you knew that they were there, and they, like I said, they genuinely cared. It's a good group of people. And it is hard. Like I said, there's times where I was just like, I can't do this anymore. I remember sitting in my brother's driveway. I'm just going to revoke myself. I can't do this. It's too much. He goes, where can you breathe? And I'm like, you're right. So I just buckled down and did everything and then some I was supposed to do.
Was there increasing pressure on you a little bit more than maybe Michelle or other people, because you come, if memory serves me correctly, you come from a law enforcement family also, don't you?
Yeah, a couple of the probation officers weren't real fond of that. I mean, jail wasn't real pretty either. But my family, they stuck by me. They said they can't do anything for me. Whatever I did, I have to fix it myself. But they said, that we will be here. And my brothers and I are probably closer now than we probably ever were, and I'm on a 3 call a day maximum to call him.
Well, I'm
But-
sure at the time you probably thought tough love sucks.
Yeah.
But how,
it
you know,
is.
do you feel like you're better for it now in the long
Oh
run?
yeah, in fact, my brother had to write a letter, I remember, and it said, if you screw up again, the family that you have now will become significantly smaller. And I have it in my purse. I carry it with me all the time, because if you don't have family, you don't have anything. I realize that, sitting up in jail and you can't see your kids or your granddaughter and your brothers or your sister, or your dad comes up there for 5 minutes because he can't handle it and leaves. I just wanted to crawl in a hole, and that was it, you know, and I wanted to show them that I can fix this, and
Okay.
I have. Well,
Good.
I'm working on it.
It's always a work in progress, though,
Mhm.
but very good. And we'll find out more about how you're doing and what your life is like now. But I want to, you know, bring Michelle into this. What was your story, Michelle?
Excuse me, it was about 10 years worth of drug abuse, lifelong. Growing up in Wisconsin with my parents, alcohol was acceptable at a very young age. But I got into hard drugs when my mom passed away about 10 years ago. I've had several terms of probation. I've been to prison twice for very little amounts of money. It was all drug related. that
And
I
not
would
just
steal.
jail. We're talking prison here.
I've been talking prison
Okay.
for just barely hundreds of dollars. That's where my addict was. It was, I would do anything for it, so.
And how much time were you facing this time around when you got into the program?
5 years,
Okay.
5 years.
All right.
How did you find out about the drug court?
Actually, after I was clean and not clean for a long time, trying with probation and myself, and I turned myself into a rehab in Stevens Point, and one of the people that were there was in the drug court, and we got to talking, and the more we talked about it, the more I had no choices left. These things that I was doing wasn't working.
What was the hardest thing for you when you started?
For drug
The
court?
drug court, yeah.
To accept my honesty, and to have people for them to accept my honesty and to care, and to just to be there. There was never, you know, you have 10 years of drug abuse. You don't have anyone you trust or that can trust you. And I think that was a real obstacle.
And so you both have jobs now?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You don't have to give the name of the employer by any means, but you know, what are you doing just generally, and how have you been accepted by your employers?
I've been at the same company for about 1.5 years. And we were talking about this earlier. They depend on me. They look up to me. I'm responsible. And wow, it's just wow. You know, you have a steady paycheck coming in, and the debts that I've incurred, and to be able to pay those off, and just to rely on yourself is just awesome.
A sense self-esteem.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Now, did
Yeah.
you have that job then, Michelle, before the
No.
drug court enrollment?
No.
Or, okay, that came
No,
after.
I really haven't worked in years. Probably the whole 10 years that I was using,
Okay.
off and on. Maybe had a job here and there, but nothing longer than 6 months,
Okay.
9 months.
And I remember there were times at the beginning when you were having a lot of problems with work.
Yep.
And
yeah.
we were there to support her the
Yes,
entire
they were.
time.
Yes, they were. Because it's a big transition when you come out of that kind of lifestyle into a clean lifestyle, and I've counted on others, and it's worked. It's
Okay.
worked.
Cynthia, what about you? What's your employment situation?
I started a new job. Well, I've been there for 8 months now. I'd gotten a job when I was in treatment and drug court. As soon as I got out of my 28-day treatment program, I think I started work like the next day, and was working in Nova too, part-time, and community service. So yeah, we were busy. And then the place I was working at, I just felt like I was going to go anywhere. And a friend of mine told me about this position, and I said, okay. And he goes, I'll get you the application, but you got to talk to them and tell them everything, because it's very hard to get in. And I went in, and it's kind of, I don't know, but it was kind of a shock when I went in there. She had my CCAB or whatever that is all printed out laying there, and my background, and I told her all the things that I have done to change my life, and like I go to the middle schools and speak, and working at the horse ranch with the kids, and I beat the heat with my brother, and that I was clean for almost 2 years. And she says, that you're just so honest. She had lost a sister from years of drug abuse, and she said that everybody deserves a second chance, and they love me there, and I work a lot of hours, and I love it. And it's the first time, most of the jobs, it's like, ugh, I'm not going in today, that kind of thing. It's like I'm out of bed at 4:45 in the morning.
Tell them what they did for you.
Oh, when I told them about, I had to ask off to go down by Judge Woldt, and we had a luau at work yesterday, so I was decked out. And my boss's boss says, well, it's awesome, congratulations. And then they must have went up to HR, some lady come back, and she goes, can you come with us? I'm like, oh my God, what? She's like, I just want to tell you, we were so proud of you. And they all started clapping and stuff, and gave me a big hug, and I thought that was, she goes, once in a while you got to toot your own horn. She says, don't ever be ashamed of that. She goes, it's awesome. And they gave me a big hug. I thought that was pretty cool.
That is great. That's great.
Do you meet did you know each other before you came in here today?
Yeah, I think I was still in Nova, wasn't I? We'd go for ice cream a lot.
Yeah. You start to, once I've got clean, you start to meet people that are clean.
Yeah.
And we've met through another friend before I started drug court.
Yeah, once you get to leave at the halfway house, we go to Dairy Queen almost like every night. I met a lot of us there.
So it's kind of an informal mentorship, I guess. Judge, is there any kind of formal mentoring that now that we've had our, first graduating class and our second, does anyone from the first work with the second, and the second work with the upcoming third? Is there anything like that in place?
One of the rules we have in drug court is that you cannot associate with anyone else in drug court.
Okay.
Oh.
And there are some reasons for doing that. We just don't want them to be in positions where they're hanging around people that may use. We don't want to put that in front of them. Now, with respect to graduates, we loosen that up a little bit, and we'll still correspond. I correspond with many of the drug court graduates. They email me, I'll email them, and our first graduate just had an accident and he was in the hospital and called me up and said, Judge Woldt, can you come up and visit me? I said, sure. So Judge Key went and saw him last night. I'm going to go see him next week, and told both of them, and they're going to go visit him too. Yeah. So part of this whole program, the reason it works is because it's a long program and we stay with them. We don't want to just cut them loose. If they have problems and they need us, we're always there. We tell them that when they graduate, and they can always come back, and we'll help them out any way we can. I told Michelle today to tell her what I kept on telling her the first month or two she was in the program. What did I tell you?
You're never going to make it.
And I thought that was something she needed.
Yeah.
And because I was the judge that sentenced her to the 5 years. So I had to build a relationship with her more so than Judge Key did, because I didn't want her to look at me as the mean old judge that was trying to do this to her. I wanted her to realize that I was trying to help her. And I felt like with her, because I got to know her real well during this process, I think she needed something out there for me to challenge her, and she was going to prove me wrong. Okay, Judge Woldt, I'm going to stick it to you.
Yeah.
You did?
I did.
It's kind of what I did in a way when I saw, it says, my brother said, whatever you did, fix it. And I thought, and my probation officer kind of rolled my butt really hard. And I'm thankful that she did now, but I was like, fine, I'll show her. I'd come in and I have 25 hours a week. There's 42 hours of work, and all my meetings, I was just like, and then it was like, well, I wasn't doing it just for that. It kind of made structure, and like, wow, this is what people do every day, And in 30 years I've been using drugs and had lots of jobs, and I'm telling you, it's simpler life.
Are there temptations, though? That's, I'm sure, why you don't want graduates associating with, people who are currently in the program. But, what are some of the temptations?
Going to work. There's a lot of people that are under the influence, have been under the influence, and you have to stay grateful. You have to stay to your task at hand, which is going through the day without the use of drugs or alcohol.
And if you find yourself kind of slipping or being a little too tempted, are there people that you can call, other graduates or, the judge or?
I have a sponsors,
Okay.
AA meetings, NA meetings.
They have to have sponsors.
Yeah, you just you learn to live that kind of lifestyle, and you learn to call. These people. Drug court taught me that I went through 10 years of trying to stay clean. It doesn't work until you learn the true way to stay clean. And that's one of them, is calling someone as soon as you feel the need.
It's part of the process. We teach them to be able to see when there are temptations out there, and when you have those temptations, what to do.
Sure.
That's part of the process, and they go through that continually. And sometimes people, I think neither of you had dirty tests, did you?
Nope.
Now,
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
other graduates have.
Yeah.
But that, sometimes you get, we talk about getting overconfident.
Yeah.
Sometimes they get overconfident and they think, oh, I can do this, and then they learn the hard way.
It's like I just recently, when I ride my Harley, there's a bunch of us that ride, and we went to a function, and I knew there was a group of people that was riding with us, and I used to hang with them in the back in the day, and when they took a right, I took a left. Everyone's like, "Where's she going?" But I'm like, I don't even want to be near that. I don't want to be near those people, and sometimes it's hard because those were your friends. It's tough love, but it's my life, and I'm not taking any more chances with it.
Good for you. What's the best part of being clean?
My granddaughter.
Just like, the little miracles every day.
Yeah.
It'll just kill you. It's just like, wow. Even just, I had an Easter lily open up. It's been my high point for all week long, just going outside to look at that and then being.
How old's your granddaughter?
2.
2.
She's awesome.
That's awesome.
She brought her to drug court last
Yeah.
week. Really? Just introduce her
Yeah,
to me.
because I would bring her when she was really little. I brought her a couple times, and I wanted her, because now she can say thank you for letting Grandma be around. But she was too shy to let
Could you share, either of you, a first impression or a lasting impression about the judge here, just for something personal?
Without retribution.
Wow. He's not as tough as he seems to be,
Okay.
I think. He's very caring, he's just a very caring person. He really cares about what happens to us, and that's an awesome feeling.
Yeah, for once when you went in there, you weren't. I mean, I was scared all the time, but and I looked forward to going to drug court on Fridays. When they started cutting me loose, I'm like, I started missing them. I'm like,
Right.
seriously, they care. He cares a lot,
Yeah.
and he's doing an awesome job because, like, my family can't thank him enough. I can't either. Kicking me in the butt all the time. Thank you.
He doesn't look like a judge. He looks like a kind father.
Yeah, he does up on the bench, believe
Really?
me.
Some people would agree, some people
Yeah, there was a couple times with some of the other participants. I'm like, oh, you really don't want to go there.
Something I'd like to add is the drug court isn't all about just drugs. A lot of addicts like myself have different problems, and their whole team, they're there for you for different aspects of not just the drug thing. We all have different past issues, present issues. It's not just the drug thing. It's a total life-changing thing.
Okay, thank you for sharing that, because I think that's good information
It is.
for people to have, that it's not just about drugs,
Right.
and that it's sort of a total care package.
Right.
Judge, when you hear, really nice words like we just did about what you're doing not just for these ladies, but for other people in the program as well. What does that mean to you as, not just as a person, but as a judge?
The whole reason I became a judge is because I wanted to make a difference in people's lives. That's why I did it. That's why I started this program. And I was telling them before we started that for me, graduation is real fun. Not so much for the graduates, but for their family. Their family, all of them come up to me in tears, thanking me. Now, I'm at the head of this, so I get all of the thank yous. It's not just me. It's Judge Key, it's Carol Cook, our coordinator, the probation workers, all those people in the background too, from the DA's office, their person, Eric Spire, does the John Kish, head of the public defender's office. They're all workers on this too. So I kind of get all of the thanks, but it is heartwarming. As I was listening to him talk now, I started choking up a little bit. I'm a very emotional person, and I'll show my emotions, especially in drug court. I remember when Michelle went from phase 1 to phase 2, and that's when I said to her, you know, I never thought you would make this program, never thought you would do it. I said, I'm proud of you. And I got a little teary, and so did she. And I was genuinely proud of her that she did it. And she got teary too. So it means something.
Sure. And you know, sometimes that's all it takes to really put yourself into high gear, is someone saying, I don't think you can cut this, you know.
Well, I knew they would be there if I fell too. You know, it wasn't, but it was more of like not letting your parents down or anybody else down. There's a lot of thoughts going through your head, the whole process.
Sure. We've got just a couple minutes left, Judge, but you know, with this kind of tremendous success, and not just these ladies, but you know, 60-some people that have graduated or will be graduating total.
60
I'm sorry,
people.
enrollees.
Yeah.
How many are graduating?
But in October 7th, we have 4 more graduating.
Okay.
As I said, the entire Supreme Court's going to be here, which is just tremendous. We got the chief on the first one, so the chief gave Cynthia hers, but Michelle's going to get all 7 Supreme Court justices to perform at hers. So it's a big event.
Okay. So with this kind of success, are you and the other judges in the county looking at other types of alternative programs? You know, we hear about truancy court and other types of alternative programs to prison or to jail. Anything else in the works?
A few months ago, an assistant district attorney contacted me and asked me about maybe considering starting a mental health court. And we've had a meeting on that, and you know, I've started the drug court and running the drug court. I also started the STOP program for alcohol, and in the process of running that and trying to get that to go statewide, my plate is pretty full. And I said I would help them at the beginning stages to try to get this going, because I know how to run this and get these things going. I'll help you at the beginning, but as far as running it, I could not do that. And another judge stepped up and said that, Judge Seifert said that she would help on it. So we're in the process of looking at that.
Okay, wonderful. Well, congratulations to both of you.
Thank you.
know, it's really a tremendous success story that each of you have. And thanks so much for being here to share it with us. Your Honor, thank you, as always. We'll have you
Thank
back
you.
again, I'm sure. For sure next year at this time.
There you go.
Good luck to both of you.
Thank you.
We're going to take a very, very short break. When we come back, we'll be joined by Dr. Jim Simmons from the university. He's a political science professor there. We'll be talking about the past primary election and the upcoming general election. We'll be right back.
I escaped
By foot?
and ran across a border.
I couldn't practice my religion.
I was put to work in forced labor camps.
If I stay in Cambodia, I would have been dead by now.
If you think differently, then you're an enemy.
If you know how to read and write, you're dead. If you speak your mind, you're dead.
The only way to express what I wanted to do was to get out.
I got to the country when I was about 14 years old.
I was 20.
I was 24.
I came here with nothing. No money, no English.
America stood for freedom, it stands for freedom, and that's what all my generation, young generation, wanted to be there.
For the first time, I felt like I have a right to be on this earth.
Here air. You can do whatever you want to do.
I love my life here. I feel at home.
I'm free to do what I want.
Freedom to me means my life.
How you doing?
Hi.
Hi.
Have a nice day.
You too.
Thanks.
If only child abuse were this easy to recognize. If you even suspect abuse, call 1-800-4-A-CHILD. All calls are anonymous and confidential. Trust your instincts.
Poor nutrition today will increase Sarah's chances of anemia, add to her healthcare costs, sick days, even stunt her ability to learn. And the thing is, Sarah's not even born yet. Get proper nutrition before it's too late. Call or visit WIC. WIC provides nutrition information, healthcare referrals, even food. Your child has you, and you have WIC.
And Oshkosh, and as I mentioned before the break, we're joined now by Dr. Jim Simmons, a political science professor from UW-O. And we're going to be talking about, as I said, the past primary election and the upcoming general election. And Dan, you had something specific with regard to the national elections.
Yeah, I want to pick Jim's brains and mind a little bit about why Wisconsin seems by most polls and most comments has become sort of a toss-up state. What's going on?
Well, it's been a toss-up state for the last two presidential elections, so it's no surprise.
But Obama had a big lead a couple months ago, didn't he?
He was up by as much as 10 points.
Okay, well, that's a big lead.
It's probably down to half that now,
Okay.
depending upon what survey you look at.
Okay.
I think that there was a lot of enthusiasm around Obama during the primaries, and the Republican base was not terribly excited about McCain until the convention, and then the choice of Vice President Palin enthused a number of people who, particularly the radio talk show people, who hadn't cared terribly much about McCain. So. Plus, I think there are a number of national events, the convention itself and other things. There's usually a convention bounce, and so you expect the race to tighten, and I expected Wisconsin to get closer, and it has. Now it seems to be moving in the other direction.
Is the Palin factor significant in the race getting closer?
Well, she appeals. Actually, she appeals more to men than to women. I mean, if you saw the jump in the polls, I mean, it tended to be among men, but she does appeal to some women. She appeals particularly to white married women who are either stay-at-home moms or work part-time. I think all women, are kind of excited about the fact that you have a possibility of a woman that close to the presidency. They may not want this particular woman with her views, but some women are excited by it.
Closeness of election, I think assumption of a lot of people in the state was that this would be a good Democratic year at the state level. The Assembly would go Democrat and the Senate would stay Democrat and maybe increase a little bit. Is that still a...
It still looks like it's going to happen.
Okay.
I mean, the presidential race tightened, and it looks like whatever bounce McCain got from the convention and the Palin nomination has been reversed, perhaps by recent events, especially by problems in Wall Street. Okay. And we're almost back where we were prior to the convention.
Okay.
So, and even during all that time, there wasn't quite as much tightening in the statewide races. In other words, the Democrats still seem to be going to gain seats in both the House and the Senate.
Could we touch on the local races? I know you brought some election stats, which I had asked you to do, and I'm pleased that you did that. Could you run down the Democrat and Republican votes for 54th District, which is Gordon Hentz's district, and then the 18th District Senate race? Give us some figures.
Well, actually, they weren't up on the board. And in fact, one of the reasons why I don't think they were reported, because the turnout in Oshkosh was 5.4%.
You're kidding.
No. In fact,
Wow.
there were 3 voting districts where as few as 6-7 people voted.
My heavens.
So
I thought it'd be 10 or 15% anyway.
I mean, no.
No.
There was no contest.
Yeah, I understand.
And when there's no contest, people don't turn out, and you can't really make very much of
Right.
such a handful of people turning out. One of the things that you have noticed, though, is they're through the primary season, the Democrats have had an advantage. I mean, their base seemed to be more enthusiastic. More people cared, both at the top of the ticket and on down through. I think they've been out of office for long enough that they're hungry to return. And so, you know, you looked at the turnout in the Democratic primaries, and they dwarfed the turnout of the Republican primaries. But this past primary, very little excitement anywhere in Wisconsin, even where there were contests. And there were precious few contests. I mean, it's surprising.
53rd District, we had, what, 4 Republicans running for... Was turnout a little higher there, Jim, or not?
No. Well, I mean, it was higher than Oshkosh.
Yeah, it's pretty easy to beat.
not hard to accomplish.
No.
But the fact is that if you look at that, Spanbauer,
Who won, by the way?
who won,
Yeah.
got fewer votes in winning this time than he got losing last time. And in fact, there were 1,000 fewer votes cast in this year, which is the national election,
Right.
than there were 2 years ago.
When
in
Carol
the midterm.
Owens beat him in the primary. Yeah.
Right. And, you know, he got something like 1,700 votes last time and only 1,100 votes this time.
What would you attribute that to?
Well, again, I don't think there is. I think the 53rd may be kind of interesting. It's been a safe seat. You know, parts of Winnebago County, city of Waupun, parts of Oshkosh, Amro, Fond du Lac, Dodge County. So the parts are almost gerrymandered for a safe Republican seat. But the lack of enthusiasm among Republicans in an open seat, I mean, that should be a bigger draw than someone running against an
That's what I
incumbent.
was thinking, and that's why what you just said about, the numbers really kind of, I guess, surprised me.
Me too.
He's run twice before.
Right.
Yes.
And he came relatively close to winning last time. And this time, last time he got 47% of the vote, this time he got 43. And he was running against some relatively unknown candidates.
3 candidates who had never run for public office.
Never run for public office, didn't have much name recognition. Right. They didn't have a very visible campaign. You didn't see yard signs. You didn't see a lot of what you would expect in a campaign. And yet, Mike Hatch at 39% of the vote. I mean, I would not feel too happy about that if I were Mr. Spanbauer. Now, that doesn't mean that...
Jeff Mann is going to...
No, but the Democrats were thinking, prior to the Republican convention, that there were a lot of Democrats who put their name in, who were asked to basically contest a seat, who might be shocked to find themselves winning. One Democrat was telling me that he agreed to run, he didn't agree to serve.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think we're almost back to the status quo ante prior to the party conventions. And if you look at the generic races and, the Democrat versus Republican in the Senate races and the congressional races, looks pretty good.
Okay. So you're saying Jeff Mann, the Democrat who ran the primary unopposed, has more of a chance as a Democrat in the 53rd than a Democrat would have in the past? Or?
I think that's right.
Okay.
I think that, that would suggest to me that this is something that the Democrats should consider putting some money into.
Okay, let's go to the 54th. Is Gordon Hentz in trouble in the 54th to win re-election?
I really don't think so. Once again, he's facing a relatively unknown opponent. Surprisingly, he's well-heeled. I mean, he's raised a lot of money, and I think he's capable, as the incumbent, of raising more. His opponent has raised the kind of money you would expect to see in a city council race. Now that might change. I mean, I've seen a lot of enthusiasm since the Republican convention, particularly among college Republicans. So that if that's reflected in the people who normally contribute to a race, then maybe.
Yeah, but it's unlikely the state Republican Party is going to put any money in this race.
They ought to consider it, but the fact is that Gordon won 2-1
Yeah.
against Julie Pongleschke, who was relatively well known and very open and congenial kind of person. If she couldn't do better than that, I think the Republicans probably are not going to devote a lot of resources to this race.
Turn to the 18th district.
Well, I just wanted to understand this for a minute. I was kind of surprised, by Mark Ref. I can't remember how to pronounce his name, but Gordon Hentz's opponent. We had him on the show a few weeks back, both of them at the same time, for a relative newcomer who, as you said, hasn't raised much money at all, and I haven't really seen any yard signs, I don't think, for him. That's not to say there aren't any out there, but I haven't personally seen any. Haven't seen much for Gordon Hentz either. But I was very surprised, and I guess pleasantly so, when he was on the show with Gordon. He really, I thought, didn't agree with all of his positions, certainly, but he, I thought, did a very good job of countering Gordon's positions on certain things.
That's almost irrelevant if he can't get out there. I mean, there are very few forums like this that he's going to have available to him. I'm going to be, doing a debate on campus. I think the League of Women Voters might do one too. There might be another one, Progress Oshkosh, but outside of those forums, unless he can run radio, TV, unless he can go face to face and do all the doors in Oshkosh, he's going to have a really tough road. I mean, the last time I looked, Gordon had raised $43,000. Probably when you get down to it, he'll have raised 3 times that. I mean, last time Michalewski was benefited not only by the fact that she raised as much money, but there were third-party groups that coming in, running those ads.
They were terrible.
Yeah. And I think that may not happen for the Republican this time, because the third-party groups are going to put their money where they think it's going to be most effective, and that may not be here.
Sure. Well, I think, too, that Gordon probably will take this election. I just feel like I was surprised. I guess I expected him to not be quite so competent in responding to certain things. And but you are right. If he can't get his message out there, no one will really hear him.
I mean, he hadn't reported any.
Yeah, and he has no name identification.
Right.
That's just huge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead, you wanted to move on to
I just wanted you to assess the 18th district, the Senate seat that's Carol Ressler retired from, and just my impression is Republicans haven't really, invested a lot in this race. Is that a false assumption on my part? Or?
I think this is going to end up being an expensive race, but maybe not more expensive than the 54th.
Okay.
I mean, it's a fairly extensive, multi-county
3 counties,
seat,
right?
Yeah. And it's been a safe Republican seat. Carol Ressler had very little difficulty being reelected. Of course, she could raise large sums of money, and everyone knew it. And given the incumbency, she had a few serious challenges. So I thought that there would be more and more prominent Republicans trying to preserve that seat. I mean, right now it's 17-14 Democrat in the Senate with 2 vacancies. And, things can happen in a presidential race. So there can be coattails at the top of the ticket so it's not impossible for the Republicans to regain the Senate, but it is if they can't find the people to contest these seats, particularly one that they hold. I have to tell you, though, you may not have seen it, but there's already been a campaign. I know that there's been a push poll in which
read about that.
Yes. The phone calls where they ask it, if you knew that a king had basically done badly by the people whose basements were flooded, would you be more likely to vote for? I don't know what all the other questions were, but
Right.
I've heard. So I think that there are oftentimes these subterranean campaigns, let's say.
This is Jess King now, the council, Oshkosh, who's running as a Democrat in the 18th.
Against Randy Hopper.
Randy
Yeah,
Hopper
and
from
Hopper.
Fond du Lac.
Yes.
So I could, if that's how the campaign starts off, this could be a very negative campaign.
Well, and there have been, there was a complaint filed against Hopper
Right.
for going into one of the state capitol offices with representative from the Fond du Lac area and talking about what he needed to do to win the campaign, apparently, and that's the allegation anyway, and you know where
Something
that
that King said she had absolutely nothing to do with.
Yes.
Yeah, but still.
so
Yeah,
you know
one for each side.
Yeah. So you know we'll see what develops there, but yeah, I think it has the potential to turn really ugly.
Yeah, and there you might see third-party groups putting their money in to save that seat.
Okay.
I'd like to turn to the issue about new voter registrants, and maybe go through the legal thing a little bit. In general, maybe disagree or agree with this. In general, Republican Party likes low turnout. Various ways with tougher voter registration and tougher and absentee ballots. Democrats, on the other hand, kind of like larger turnout, a little looser rules. Both sides feel that that position favors them. What has the Attorney General done, and what has been the Democratic response to that?
The reason why the parties differ on this is because the Democratic Party traditionally has had a lot of support for people at the lower income levels.
Okay.
I mean, it's kind of a bipolar party. You have a lot of blue collar, lower income, minority voters, and at the same time you've got a number of more affluent professionals and so on. So, and the Republicans tend to be white collar managers, small business, and so they tended to think that a more compact electorate would benefit them.
Okay.
And
That's a nice
so therefore,
word, compact electorate.
So, you know, enlarging the electorate has been something that the Republicans have opposed. In fact, the party has pushed voter ID, you know, concerned about election fraud and students voting more than once on campus or in their hometown. And so that they've really been pushing that. And in fact, after the last election, they pushed through that law that where the Democrats agreed that there needed to be more verification. And in fact, you had to ensure that, you know, the different databases were cross-checked to make sure that voter fraud isn't going on. And this isn't just the case of Wisconsin. There are 10 battleground states where there have been efforts to challenge voter registration. And the cross-checking has created some problems because the databases aren't all consistent. For example, I might show up on one database as Jim Simmons, and I might show up on another database as James R. Simmons, or James Simmons without the middle initial. And therefore, I might be purged from the rolls because
They might think there's three of you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Just like sometimes you get magazines under 3 different names. I mean,
Simmons is going to vote 3 times.
Exactly. Well, I mean, if you're trying to match databases, that in 10 of the states, so and they're battleground states. So the fact is that this suggests that depending upon how the outcome of the election works out, that we could have recounts or challenges. The states are supposed to have provisional ballots so that if you show up to vote and they tell you you're not registered, they're supposed to provide you with a provisional ballot.
And that goes in a folder, and it goes to the city clerk like in Oshkosh, and that provisional voter then would have to come down the next day and verify by ID that he is a registered voter. Otherwise, the provisional ballot is not counted.
Tossed.
Wow.
So you can imagine that many people are thinking, well, they might, it's difficult enough to get some people to vote.
Right.
I mean, some people might see a line and say, well, it's just not worth it, and not show up. But then the idea that you were registered, but you don't show up on the registration list, you have to do a provisional ballot, then you have to go down to City Hall to verify, provide the information that they want. And many states don't have enough provisional ballots. I mean, the expectation is the state should have as much as 10%.
It's a lot.
It is.
And given the efforts to register and the increasing registration, we don't even know what 10% might be. You can't estimate it from 2004, 2006. It's probably going to be more than that.
So you're thinking, if I listen to you correctly, you're thinking that maybe this challenge by the Attorney General, Republican Attorney General of Wisconsin, to challenge these recent voter registrations might be more of an end game after the election than what he can accomplish before the
Well,
election.
I mean, it could pregame too, because everybody who registered after 2006 is supposed to be checked against and verified against various databases. Yeah. The state fell behind that, and the clerks are saying there isn't any way they could possibly do that before the election. Yeah. So if a court should rule that all those people are not registered, they're going to show up thinking they are, and they'll have to ask for provisional ballot. There are something like 250,000 of them.
Yeah. Well, they could register to vote at the polls too. They wouldn't have to ask for provision, but that would slow up the process.
You can imagine. Well, you can imagine. And I'm since take for example, the students are going to turn out in mass. Right. I mean, they don't normally vote, and they'll be at Albee Hall. I mean, the lines were incredible. In 2006 and 2004 and 2000, you can imagine how many students are going to, if they've got to register them after they've gone through the entire process.
So you have to register again.
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought that up, Jim, because that was one of the questions that I had. Just in the last day or two, there was an article in the Northwestern about how the students on campus are so excited about this upcoming election. Why this one so much more than other elections, and what will that excitement do for the get out the vote effort?
Well, college students tend to be presidential election voters. I mean, they don't vote in the April elections. They don't vote in local elections unless they coincide with a national election.
Right, but I don't remember this kind of excitement, 4 years ago.
We, on our campus, we have one of the highest turnouts and have had for a number of years among college students. And part of it is the candidates. You've got, we have no baby boomers running this time. We've got someone from the greatest generation, John McCain, and we've got Joe Biden, but the fact is you've got a young presidential candidate on the Democratic side and a young vice presidential candidate on the Republican side. This is a key election in a lot of ways. I think a lot of college students are worried about their futures, about Social Security, about education, about the market, jobs. Okay. I think they see this as critical. Besides, there were a couple of generations. I remember in Generation Y, Generation X were seen as kind of slackers. And we got millennials. They seem to be more engaged than some of the...
Well, that's good. Now, if they could just engage some of the older people, maybe we'd have a higher voter turnout. Real quickly, on a referendum issue that's coming up in February. The school district is determined, I guess, to put a referendum on a February ballot in 2009. That's from when this show airs, that will be 5 short months away. And that's, I say short because when you're dealing with a multi-million-dollar referendum, that's not a lot of time. Do you think that it has a chance of passing, especially given A, the short time frame, B, the problems that this district and the board has faced in recent months, the last year or so?
I would be pretty pessimistic if I were members of the majority on the board. In other words, you've got to tell voters what you want in a coherent way and what they're going to get for their money, and to ensure them that that's exactly what the referendum is going to buy. And I just haven't seen all that much coherence coming out of the school board. I mean, proposals are floated as trial balloons and pop and then are replaced by, you have at least one, sometimes two minority members of the board who seem to be opposed to any proposal that comes forward and have the capacity to undermine those projects. So that's going to make it tough.
Well, I know when you know the guys from the Northwestern were here, you know, we asked them about that question, and Stu Rickman felt that you know, if it's done right, it could probably pass. But you know, as a reporter, I've covered referendums in different communities, and they've started long before this. And I just don't think that 5 months is enough time to get your game plan together and get your message out there. You can't just go out one time with a message like this. It's got to be multiple times to really convince the voters that this is what you need to do. And I just don't see that they have that kind of time.
Well, you know, referendums to build new schools or to expand programs, but if it's contraction, you're going to close down some schools and replace them with others, then you run into the NIMBY syndrome, not in my backyard, not my kids, not this time.
And that's been the tensions in this community.
All along.
All along.
That's why the plans keep failing.
That's exactly, So I would say, you know, it's, and I don't know what the percentage is, but my guess is a high percentage of these referendums do fail the first time.
Besides, you're going to have a relatively organized and relatively expensive campaign to be successful. And we're spoiled because you realize that in this presidential election year, since the conventions, we're 6th among the states in terms of campaign spending. And in fact, this area, the Green Bay market, television market, is the 6th in the country in terms of spending. I mean, and that's just the start of it. The ads that you've been seeing, that they're going to multiply. There've already been something like over 1,000 airings of particular ads just since the convention. And if the race remains tight, you're going to see more of the same. Now, you could be living in California, New York. You wouldn't know an election was going on.
Wow. Well, we're going to have you back after the general and kind of review things. So, but thanks very much for your insight as always. Dan, thanks. Thanks to the crew, and as always, thanks to you at home. We'll see you next time. Until then, take good care. Keep your eye on us. We've got our eye on Oshkosh.